Hello, and welcome to Inspired to Taste. I'm Liz Joy, and today I'll be sharing the recipes and decorating techniques behind these enchanting little cakes, featuring the delicate flavors of almond, raspberry, and rosemary. Let's get started. Soft and springy with a delicate even crumb, this almond and rosemary Genoise is as enchanting as a garden in bloom, like a whisper of fairy magic carried on a spring breeze. First, we'll preheat the oven to 340 degrees Fahrenheit and prepare our cake pans. I'll be making 4 mini cakes using 4-inch pans. In a small bowl, add 30 grams of cold-pressed food-grade almond oil. Add to that 24 grams of whole milk and 1 teaspoon of finely crushed rosemary. Mix it together and then set this aside for now. Next, in a separate bowl, we'll mix together our dry ingredients: 80 grams of cake flour, 6 grams of cornstarch, 60 grams of almond flour, and a pinch of salt. Sift the dry ingredients together. In a large bowl, add 4 room temperature eggs. "20 grams of honey, and 120 grams of granulated sugar. Whisk these over a bain-marie or double boiler until the sugar dissolves and it's nice and warm to the touch, about 40 degrees Celsius or 104 degrees Fahrenheit. Remove it from the heat and whip it on high speed for about 5 to 8 minutes. Watch how the mixture triples in volume and gets much lighter in color. Notice the consistency here. When I lift the beaters, the batter drips off in a thick ribbon. See how it's holding its shape and not reabsorbing? This is what we're looking for. This is essential for getting a light and airy texture. After the batter has reached this ribbon stage, go ahead and beat it some more on the very low speed for about 2 to 3 minutes. This will help break down any larger air bubbles, ensuring the texture is silky smooth and even. Look how pretty this is. Gently add half of your dry ingredient mixture into the whipped eggs and carefully fold them together using a J motion with your spatula while also turning the bowl. I learned this folding style from the amazing hand bit. I know it seems ridiculously simple, but it really works like a charm. The key here is to evenly combine the ingredients without deflating the egg foam too much. Then add the rest of the dry ingredients the same way. Once that's combined, we can move on to tempering the oil and milk mixture. To do that, take about half a cup of the batter and mix it into the oil-milk mixture. Then fold it back into the egg mixture, making sure to just gently fold until the batter is a consistent texture. Once everything is combined, pour the batter into your prepared cake pans. Tap the pan gently but firmly on the countertop a couple of times to release any extra air bubbles. Then bake for about 15 to 20 minutes or until the cake is a deep golden brown and springy to the touch. Tap it on the counter again to release any remaining steam, then flip the cake upside down onto a cooling rack. And that's it! The result is this beautifully delicate, fragrant almond and rosemary Genoise sponge with the perfect crumb. It's a really versatile base for tons of different desserts, or you could just enjoy it as is. I'm going to be adding several more layers to it for my mini cakes. Next up, brown butter and almond Sablé Breton. These cookies will provide a crisp, golden foundation for my mini cakes, grounding them with the richness of brown butter, the gentle toastiness of almonds, and the caramel-kissed depth of coconut sugar. The delicate layer of sliced almonds adds an extra crunch, like scattered leaves in an enchanted grove. This recipe is an adaptation of a hazelnut version from the amazing blog KarenRubin.com. First, preheat your oven to 340 degrees Fahrenheit. In a small bowl, combine 4 grams of baking powder, 50 grams of pastry flour, and 50 grams of almond flour. Give it a quick whisk to evenly distribute everything. In a separate medium bowl, add 38 grams of coconut sugar, 1/4 teaspoon of salt, half a teaspoon of vanilla bean paste, and 42 grams of brown butter that's been melted and cooled. Then whisk until smooth. Next, mix in 1 egg yolk. Now fold the dry ingredients into the butter mixture. The dough will be dry and crumbly. That's exactly what it's supposed to be like. I like to give it a final mix by hand to make sure everything is evenly incorporated. Now divide the dough between your pastry rings, pressing it down evenly to about 1/2 centimeter thickness. At this point, I'm going to press some almond slices on top for extra crunch. Since the dough isn't very sticky, you'll want to press them in firmly to help them stay in place. Bake these for 10 to 15 minutes or until they're deep golden brown and set in the center. Now for a little extra trick. While the cookies are still warm, I like to sprinkle on a touch of micrio, which is just powdered cocoa butter. This helps the almond slices adhere even better. Let these cool for about 10 minutes, then remove the rings to cool completely. Next up, we'll make some amaretto syrup to soak the sponges. This delicate syrup infuses the sponge with warmth and a touch of golden sweetness. The smooth, nutty essence of amaretto is gently rounded by honey, adding a soft floral note that lingers like morning dew over a blooming garden. As it soaks through the Genoise, it enhances the texture and flavor, ensuring a tender, aromatic bite. In a saucepan, add 180 grams of water, 150 grams of granulated sugar, and 15 grams of honey. Turn your heat to medium-high and give it a gentle stir every now and then, just to help the sugar dissolve completely. Once the sugar is dissolved, bring the mixture to a gentle boil. Allow it to bubble away for about 1 to 2 minutes, just long enough to thicken up a little. If you're looking for a thicker, more syrupy texture, you can cook it longer, but I'm aiming for a thin consistency to ensure it will really soak into the sponge. After it's cooled slightly, pour in 75 grams of amaretto liqueur. If you'd like a more subtle alcohol flavor, you can return the pan to low heat for about 30 seconds, stirring gently, but be sure not to boil it. Bright and bold, this compote weaves lush raspberries with a generous touch of lemon, adding a vibrant, sunlit contrast to the cake's nutty warmth. First, let's bloom our gelatin. In a small bowl, sprinkle 10 grams of powdered gelatin over 60 grams of cold water and let it sit for about 5 minutes to absorb all the water. While the gelatin blooms, grab a saucepan and add 300 grams of fresh raspberries. If you're using frozen raspberries, just make sure to thaw them first. Then add 15 grams of lemon juice and the zest of 1 full lemon for a fresh citrusy kick. Finally, pour in 120 grams of granulated sugar. Place the saucepan over medium heat and stir occasionally. Let the mixture cook until the raspberries break down and it starts to simmer. This will take about 5 to 7 minutes. Once the raspberries have simmered down, gently heat the bloom gelatin in the microwave for about 8 seconds to melt it. When the compote has cooled to between 40 and 60 degrees Celsius, stir in the gelatin until it's fully dissolved. Let the compote cool to room temperature or cover and chill in the fridge before using. It will continue to thicken as it cools down. Next, we'll dust raspberries and rosemary sprigs in a sugary shimmer, like tiny treasures kissed by frost. In a small bowl, whisk together 2 teaspoons of meringue powder with 3 tablespoons of warm water. The warm water helps dissolve the powder more evenly, creating a smoother, frothier mixture. Whisk until it's slightly foamy. This will act as our edible glue for the sugar. Meringue powder is a great alternative to raw egg whites for this effect, and it just makes me feel better about food safety. Now, gently dip or brush your raspberries with the meringue mixture, making sure they're lightly coated. You don't need a thick layer, just enough to help the sugar stick. I like to gently pat them down with a paper towel to remove any excess meringue mixture. Next, coat each in superfine caster sugar, turning them over to make sure they're evenly coated. If they pick up too much sugar, don't worry, you can always take a soft fan brush and gently sweep off the excess for a more refined look. Then, just follow the same process with the rosemary sprigs. Place the sugared berries and rosemary sprigs on a paper towel or parchment-lined tray and let them dry at room temperature for at least an hour or until the coating is crisp and set. Just 2 more whimsical details to whip up before our cake comes to life: fluffy buttercream blossoms and delicate 3D royal icing butterfly. I love adding royal icing butterfly sprinkles as a whimsical finishing touch on all kinds of desserts. You can find a full tutorial and a printable template in the link in the description, but here's a quick overview. Start by using hybrid consistency royal icing to pipe the wings, working from the outside in. You can use a scribe tool or toothpick to help create the pattern. Let the top wings dry for about 10 minutes before piping the bottom wings. Once they're fully dry, preferably overnight, carefully detach them, then use stiff consistency royal icing to pipe the butterfly bodies and attach the wings at an angle. For the flowers, I'm going to be using Italian meringue buttercream in 2 colors. I want a slight variation in size, so I'll be using 2 different size petal tips. When filling the piping bags, my aim is to position the pink buttercream along the wide end of the petal tips. I misjudged a little on one of these, but it still gives a really pretty blush effect. To start, I piped a small ring of icing as a base to lift the petals slightly. Then I'm piping the petals in a couple of layers for a fuller look. Once they're done, I'll pop them in the freezer for a bit to firm up, which will make them easier to handle. A cake is more than a dessert, it's a story told in layers, where flavors and textures weave together like a fairy tale on a plate. With each bite, a little more magic unfolds. To build these cakelets, I'm starting with the Sablé Breton. On top of that goes a layer of brown butter Italian meringue buttercream. Next, I'm placing the first cake layer and soaking it generously with the Amaretto syrup to keep it moist and flavorful. Then another layer of buttercream, followed by a piped border to act as a dam for the filling. Now for the Zesty raspberry compote, one of my very favorite parts. Then I'm repeating those layers once more, ending with a final piece of soaked sponge. If you're enjoying this tutorial, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more whimsical bakes. With the layers stacked, I can now crumb coat and frost the cakelets with more of my brown butter buttercream. For a soft painted effect, I'm adding dots of pink icing and lightly smoothing them with a cake scraper. To add a little sparkle, I'm going to dust on some bakery bling sprinkles in 2 colors around the bottom edge of my cakes. My favorite trick for doing this is to use a big soft fan brush to gently press the sprinkles into place. Next, a few gold stars for a little extra magic. Then I'm piping a buttercream border using a French star tip. And stacking fresh and sugared raspberries in the center. Now it's time to place my buttercream blooms. I'm attaching each with a dollop of frosting and finishing them with yellow centers. To fill things in, I'm also adding buttercream leaves. I attached a scattering of pearl dragées off camera, and then for a bit of final pretty texture, I'm piping delicate floating petals. Then adding a couple of my royal icing butterflies. And finally, a few sprigs of sugared rosemary. Let's take a look at these finished cakelets and then dig in.
3, 2, 1.